Hi, this is Steve. Let's take a look at a really interesting Masters Challenge Jumpers course from Beth Diehl at the Fly Right Over trial in Campton Hills, Illinois from just a little while ago. This was an interesting course. You might want to pause it and pause the video and take a look at it yourself and see how you would handle it. I think the challenge for a lot of people was the opening. There are a few ways to handle it. You can see from the dog's path that the dog goes one, backside of two, three, and then into the weaves. The really two primary ways to handle it. A fair number of people, the handler stayed on the takeoff of two and then did a forced front cross. So they turned into the dog and kept dog on left and pulled around. And if for people who did that, some just sent their dog into the weaves. Others came out and did a front cross and handled dog on left. The obvious challenge to coming up here for the cross is it shows forward motion for the dog, and we're seeing dogs end up in the off-course tunnel. That happened to Flyer and myself. The other option obviously is to have the handler come down this side, push the dog to the backside of two, and then blind cross. So the dog's path, the dog cross, the handler continues forward, the dog ends up on the handler's right, and then the same two options at four were available, either the pull into the weaves or again the front cross. The third way I saw it done that I liked that was pretty successful was either way the handler handled two, but the trick was then to send the dog over three, trust your weave entries, then the handler can just fade back and be at the end of the weaves. So the handler never actually goes to the entrance of the weaves. They just come in, send the dog over, cue the weaves, and then the handler continues moving in this direction. We're really looking at the path that pretty much everyone took was turn the dog right over five, bring him over six, and then right again, and then back over seven towards eight. So that was the desired dog's path. There are a few ways people handle that, depending on which side of the weaves you were on. If you were coming down this side, you just had dog on left, and then people either did a kind of a curly cue, but most people took the dog on their left and just did a catch cur here, so they threw the dog back. That put the dog on the handler's left as they came around. So the handler now comes straight forward, driving towards six with the dog on their left. And then a catch cur again gets the dog wrapping to their right. And now the dog is on the handler's left, which is perfect for coming down this line. That was the way most people handled it. If you were coming from this side here, it really was just a front cross or a blind cross off the end of the weaves, which put the dog again on the handler's left into that same little sequence. Some people who wanted to get moving faster from a handler's perspective down towards eight, once they got the dog wrapped around here, they actually cued a verbal right turn, so they sent the dog on their right arm, right turn, and then sent him off to eight, and they were both off to the races and running down towards eight at that point. From there, once the dog's in the tunnel, it was a fairly long tunnel, so you had a bit of a run. I'd like to think that 12 was possibly set back a little further, maybe not quite that much. So there was a path for the handler to come down this way and still get to 10 with the dog on the right, and that opened up other possibilities. But once again, there are two sides to every jump, so there were definitely handlers who came down both sides of 9. I chose with Flyer, I liked coming down this way because I had just sent him in the tunnel on the right, so I pick him up on my right again as he comes out. I could get way down this line, and then he would see me pull up into here, and for me the rear cross on the flat gave me a nice wrap over 10. Other people came in and either came down this side or most likely came across, picked up the dog on their left and treated this like a shoulder pull, or even I think some people came in and actually used the catchker on 10 to get a very tight wrap, and then the handler takes off down this path here. So once you got the dog over 11, it was okay to send him a little wide here. A few dogs did go off into the weaves and the tunnel at this point, depending on how much forward motion the handler showed in either of those directions. But for a lot of handlers, they were able to just Q10, support 11, and then get moving. Now the next big question was for which way to take 13. For the big dogs, it kept the dog in extension longer to push him to the far side and wrap the dog around the far standard of 13. For faster handlers and or those with smaller dogs, the push this way was a satisfactory approach because the handler could be up here and cue it, and the small dogs were taking a nice turn around here, and either way it set up a pretty good line to 14 and 15. So those were the two main options in that area. So once the dog is in the tunnel, we come back over the triple, and it was a matter of going past the weaves and into the tunnel. For me, I handled it same way. I had flyer on my right, sent him in. As soon as he was coming to that tunnel, I just took off. I picked him up, and then I did a rear cross on the way. I came through and did the rear cross on the way into 17. This was a fairly long tunnel, so there was concern of dogs coming and curling back if the handler didn't keep driving forward and support that backside on 18. A fair number of handlers came through and did a blind cross or a front cross even over 16 to put the dog on their put their dog on their left as the dog came out of the tunnel. And that put the handler between the dog and the weaves and allowed the handler to be at the exit of the tunnel and support 18 more easily. So I think that was probably a pretty successful approach for the teams that made it through. And then from there, the dogs come out, and it was either handlers running straight along the line to support 19, or a few handlers came through and did a cross, either a blind or a front or rear, all your possibilities to get the turn to 19. So this was a lot of fun, of course. It had some big open sections on it into interesting technical areas. It was a blast to run, and I hope you set it up and play with it.